I trusted a Thai bar girl with my future. Now I can't even trust myself. They say don't fall in love with a bar girl in Pattaya. I said she was different. She said she was done with that life. I believed her. I built my future around her, and now I can't even trust myself. The scariest part is I don't think she ever loved me at all. A few nights ago, I got an email from a longtime viewer of this channel, a man who said he's been watching since the early days, back when I was still sharing my first stories. He wrote, "Your videos help me understand I'm not the only fool who fell in love with a dream." When I read that line, something inside me just stopped. I sat there for a minute, the cursor blinking on the screen, my coffee going cold beside me. Then I started reading his story, and before I knew it, I was back there again. Pattaya, neon lights, laughter that sounds like promises, that same dangerous hope that whispers, maybe this one's different. As I went through his message, my emotions shifted, first sadness, then recognition, then that slow, heavy anger you feel toward yourself for missing what was right in front of you. He wrote about the first night she smiled at him, the way she said his name, the little lies that came later, all the things I remembered too well. And by the time I reached the end, I realized something. These stories aren't just about heartbreak. They're about the parts of ourselves we hand over without even knowing it. The trust, the loneliness, the need to feel seen. We all come here looking for something, and sometimes that search costs more than money. To everyone who keeps coming back, who listens, who comments, who sends messages like his thank you, truly, you've made this channel more than a collection of stories. You've made it a place where people can be honest about the things they're too ashamed to admit anywhere else. So wherever you're watching from, Pattaya, New York, Melbourne, or London, drop a comment below. Tell me where you are. Tell me if this one feels familiar. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and stay close, because what I'm about to tell you still hurts to say. Let me take you back to where it all started. I remember the night she told me I was her last one. We were sitting on the beach in Jomtien, just the two of us, and the sky was turning that deep purple color that makes everything feel like a movie. The waves were gentle that night, barely making a sound, and the air smelled like grilled seafood from the vendors down the shore. She had her head on my chest, and I could feel her breathing, slow and steady, like she'd finally found a place to rest. Her hair smelled like coconut shampoo and cigarettes, a combination I'd grown to love over the past 2 weeks. "You're my last love, Alton," she whispered without looking up at me. "I'm done with the bar life." Her voice was soft, almost fragile, like she was confessing something she'd never told anyone before. I didn't say anything right away because I was afraid if I spoke, the moment would shatter like glass. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure she could feel it through my shirt. But inside, I was already planning our future. I was already imagining mornings where I'd wake up next to her, afternoons where we'd ride a motorbike through the countryside, evenings where we'd cook together in a kitchen that smelled like home. I was already calling her my wife in my head. We'd been together every night for 2 weeks straight, and those 2 weeks felt like the life I should have been living all along. She laughed at my stupid jokes about Ohio winters and how I'd never seen snow like that anywhere else. She cooked me pad krapow that made my eyes water and my nose run, but I ate every bite because she looked so proud when she served it. She massaged my back when it hurt from sitting too long on those cheap plastic chairs at the street-side bars, her small hands working out knots I didn't even know I had. I kept thinking, I didn't come to Thailand for this. I came here to escape my second divorce, to escape the cold, to escape the emptiness of a house that felt too big for one man. I came here to breathe, to live out my last good years without drama or heartache or someone telling me I wasn't enough. But maybe this is what I needed all along. Maybe loneliness led me halfway across the world so I could find her. She looked up at me with those dark eyes, eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 secrets, and said, "You believe me, right?" Her voice cracked just a little, like she was scared I'd say no. I kissed her forehead, tasted the salt from the ocean air on her skin, and said, "I believe you." And I did. God help me. I really did. In that moment, I would have believed anything she told me. I wasn't looking for love when I met her. I wasn't even looking for company, not really. I just wanted someone to talk to. Someone who wouldn't judge me for being another retired American with too much time on his hands and not enough purpose. It was a Tuesday night in Soi Buakau, one of those quiet evenings where the bars aren't packed yet, and the girls are just standing around checking their phones or chatting with each other in rapid Thai I couldn't understand. The neon lights were flickering on one by one as the sun disappeared, casting everything in shades of pink and blue. I walked into a small place with no name on the sign, just a red light bulb hanging above the entrance and a couple of plastic stools outside. The music was low, some Thai pop song I didn't recognize, and there were only 3 other customers inside, old guys like me, nursing beers and staring at nothing. I ordered a Leo from the bartender, an older woman with gray streaks in her hair, and sat down on a stool near the corner. I liked corners. They made me feel less exposed, less like everyone was watching the lonely farang who came here alone. That's when she came over. "You want company?" she asked. Her voice was soft, not pushy like some of the younger ones who grabbed your arm and pulled you toward the bar before you even had a chance to sit down. I looked at her. She was older than the rest, maybe late 40s, with a calm face and tired eyes that suggested she'd seen more than she'd ever talk about. She wore a simple black dress, nothing flashy, and her makeup was understated. She looked like someone who'd lived a life. "Just conversation," I said, testing her. I'd been approached by enough bar girls to know the script. They'd pretend to be interested for 15 minutes, then start hinting about lady drinks, then push for a bar fine. But she smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes, and sat down next to me. "Good. I'm tired tonight anyway." We talked for an hour, maybe longer. She didn't ask me to buy her drinks every 5 minutes like the others did, didn't touch my arm or laugh too loud at things that weren't funny. We talked about food, about the best somtam in Pattaya, about the temples she'd visited when she was younger and still believed in making merit. We talked about a book I was reading on my phone, some thriller about a man who faked his own death. She said she liked reading too but didn't have time anymore. She said she didn't usually work nights anymore. Said she only did this to help her sick mother and her 12-year-old daughter, back in Isan, a rural province I'd only seen pictures of online. Her mother had diabetes and couldn't work, and her daughter was smart, really smart, but school uniforms and supplies cost money. The government schools were supposed to be free, but they always found ways to charge you. I felt something stir in me, something I hadn't felt in years: sympathy, connection, maybe even hope. She wasn't performing for me. She wasn't playing a role. She was just talking, just being human. "What's your name?" I asked. "Sudawan," she said, "but you can call me Sue." I liked the way it sounded when she said it. Soft and musical. "I'm Alton." She reached out and shook my hand, formal and polite, like we were business partners meeting for the first time. Her hand was small and warm in mine. I started coming back every day after that. Not because I wanted anything from her, not because I was lonely, or at least that's what I told myself. I came back because she made me feel like a person again. Like I wasn't just another old farang with a pension and a gut and nothing interesting to say. She asked me about my life. She listened when I talked about my used car lot back in Ohio, about how I'd worked 60-hour weeks for 30 years and had 2 failed marriages to show for it. My first wife left me for her personal trainer. My second wife left me for stability with someone richer. Both times I told myself I was better off alone. But alone gets heavy after a while. Sudawan didn't interrupt when I talked. She didn't look bored or check her phone. And when she talked, she didn't sound like she was performing. She sounded real. She told me about growing up in a village where electricity was unreliable and running water was a luxury. She told me about moving to Bangkok in her 20s to work in a factory, then later in a karaoke bar, then eventually here. She said Pattaya was easier because the men were older, kinder, less demanding. They just wanted company, not a fantasy. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe I was different from the other men who walked through that door. 3 months later, I moved into a small condo near Central Festival, and I asked her to move in with me. I didn't plan it. It just came out one night after we'd had dinner at a noodle shop near my place, one of those hole-in-the-wall spots where the locals ate and the tourists never went. We were walking back, the street still buzzing with motorbikes and street vendors, and I just said it. "Why don't you just stay with me full time?" I said, trying to sound casual even though my heart was racing. "You don't need to work at that bar anymore. I can take care of things." She stopped walking and looked at me for a long time, and I couldn't tell if she was happy or scared or maybe both. The streetlight above us flickered and cast shadows across her face. "You serious?" she asked. "I'm serious," I said, She nodded slowly, like she was processing what I'd just offered, like she was calculating something in her head. Okay, but I need to break my lease, and I still owe money on my motorbike. I didn't even hesitate. I pulled out 60,000 baht the next day and handed it to her in an envelope. It was about $1,700 more than I'd spent on anything in months, but I didn't care. She cried when she took it, real tears streaming down her face, and she hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. "You're too good to me, Alton," she said, her voice muffled against my shoulder. "I'll make you happy, I promise." And for a while she did. She cooked for me every night, dishes I'd never heard of but learned to love. Tom yum soup that cleared my sinuses, larb that made me sweat, green curry so spicy I had to drink 3 glasses of water. She kept the place clean, always making sure my shoes were lined up by the door and my clothes were folded. She brushed my hair in the mornings even though there wasn't much left to brush, her fingers gentle on my scalp. She called me Pial, an affectionate Thai term that made me feel younger somehow, like I was someone worth respecting. We went to the mall together on weekends. She'd hold my hand as we walked through the air-conditioned corridors, past stores I couldn't afford and restaurants that looked too fancy. I bought her clothes, shoes, a new phone with a bright pink case she picked out herself. She took selfies of us together and posted them on Facebook with heart emojis. I started introducing her to the other expats at the coffee shop as my wife. Some of them raised their eyebrows. Some of them smirked. Some of them pulled me aside later and said things like, "Be careful, mate. These girls are professionals." But I didn't care what they thought. I didn't care that she used to work in a bar. People change. People deserve second chances. I thought we were building something. I thought this was my final chapter. The one where I finally got it right after 2 divorces and a lifetime of mistakes. Then she started staying out at night again. The first time, she said she was helping a friend whose kid was sick. It was a Thursday. I remember because we'd just watched a movie together, some action film with too many explosions. She left around 9, kissed me on the cheek, and said she'd be back soon. But soon turned into hours. She came back at 2 in the morning. I was awake, lying in bed, staring at the ceiling fan spinning above me. The red numbers on the alarm clock seemed to mock me as they changed. "Where were you?" I asked when she came in. She didn't look guilty or defensive. She just looked tired. Her makeup was smudged and her hair was messy. "I told you, my friend needed help. Her baby was crying and she was alone." She climbed into bed and kissed my cheek, her breath smelling like mint gum. "Go to sleep, Pial." I wanted to believe her. I did believe her. But something felt off. There was a tension in the air that hadn't been there before, like a string pulled too tight. It happened again a week later. This time she didn't come home at all. I called her phone 5 times. The first 4 times it rang and rang. The 5th time it went straight to voicemail. I barely slept. I kept imagining the worst. An accident on the dark roads outside the city. A robbery gone wrong. A hospital somewhere with no way to contact me. Something terrible. My chest felt tight, my heart condition flaring up, and I had to take one of my pills to calm down. She came back the next morning carrying a bag of fried dough and coffee from the street vendor near our building. The smell of sugar and oil filled the condo. "Where the hell were you?" I said, louder than I meant to. My voice came out harsh, almost angry, and it startled both of us. She looked surprised, her eyes widening. "I stayed at my friend's place. Her baby was crying all night. I didn't want to wake you by coming home late. You couldn't text me?" She sighed and put the food on the table, the plastic bag crinkling. "My phone died. I'm sorry. You want to fight or you want to eat?" I didn't know what to say. I felt like I was being unreasonable. She wasn't perfect. She'd told me that from the beginning. She'd told me her life was complicated, that she had obligations, that she couldn't just cut everyone off. I couldn't expect her to change overnight, to suddenly become someone who never made mistakes or had her own life outside of me. So, I sat down and ate the fried dough, and I said nothing. But the doubt had planted itself in my mind like a seed. Over the next few weeks, the pattern continued. She'd leave at night, sometimes coming back late, sometimes not coming back at all. Her excuses changed. Sometimes it was a sick friend. Sometimes it was a family emergency. Sometimes she didn't offer an excuse at all, just kissed me and said she was tired. I started noticing other things too. Her phone was always face down on the table. She'd take calls in the bathroom with the door closed. She'd get texts in the middle of the night and the screen would light up, but I couldn't see who they were from. When I asked, she'd say it was her daughter or her mother or someone from her village. I wanted to trust her. I tried to trust her. But trust is like glass. Once it cracks, you can see the fractures even when you're trying not to look. A few weeks later, I checked my bank account and noticed something strange. I was sitting on the balcony with my laptop, going through my monthly expenses, when I saw withdrawals I didn't remember making. 3 of them. Each one was 5,000 baht, taken out at different ATMs across the city, one in Jomtien, one near Walking Street, one in Naklua. I thought maybe I'd forgotten. Maybe I'd taken cash out for something and didn't write it down. My memory wasn't what it used to be, and I'd been forgetting small things lately. Where I put my keys, what I'd eaten for breakfast, the names of people I'd met last week. But it kept happening. Every few days, another withdrawal. 5,000 here, 3,000 there. Sometimes at times when I knew I'd been home sleeping. I finally pulled up my statement on my phone and showed it to her. She was cooking in the kitchen, stirring a pot of soup that smelled like lemongrass and chili. "Did you use my card?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. She didn't look guilty. She looked confused, like she didn't understand why I was asking. "Oh, yeah, I bought food for my mom. She needed medicine. Her blood sugar was really high, and the doctor said she needs to take pills every day." "You didn't ask me. I didn't think you'd mind. You always say what's yours is mine, right?" She had a point. I had said that. Multiple times. Usually when I was feeling generous or romantic, when we were lying in bed together and she'd tell me I was different from other men. But still, it didn't sit right. The amounts were too large, too frequent. Medicine in Thailand was cheap. I'd bought my own heart medication here for a fraction of what it cost in America. "You should have told me," I said. She put down the spoon and crossed her arms. Her face changed, hardened. "You want me to pay you back? Is that it?" "No, you think I'm stealing from you?" Her voice cracked and tears started forming in her eyes. "I can't do this, Alton. I can't love someone who treats me like a thief. My mother is dying and you're worried about money?" She started crying. Not loud, dramatic sobs, but quiet tears running down her face. I felt my chest tighten, that familiar pressure that meant my heart wasn't happy. I felt like the bad guy. Like I'd accused her of something horrible when she was just trying to help her family. Like I was some cheap old man who cared more about a few thousand baht than the woman I supposedly loved. "I'm sorry," I said, standing up and going to her. "I didn't mean it like that." She turned away from me, her shoulders shaking. "Maybe I should just go. Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe you need someone who doesn't have problems, who doesn't have a family to take care of." "No. Don't. Please." I went to her and held her. She didn't hug me back right away, just stood there stiffly, but eventually she softened and wrapped her arms around me. "I trust you," I said into her hair. "I'm sorry. I was just confused." That night, she was sweet again. She made me soup with extra vegetables because she said it was good for my heart. She held my hand while we watched TV, some Thai drama I didn't understand but pretended to follow. She even initiated sex for the first time in weeks, something she rarely did. And I told myself I'd been wrong to doubt her. I told myself love meant trust, and trust meant letting go of suspicion. But deep down, a part of me knew something was wrong. A part of me that I kept pushing down because I was too afraid of what would happen if I listened to it. Then came the call that changed everything. It was a Saturday afternoon, hot and humid, the kind of day where the air feels like it's pressing down on you and you can't catch your breath. I was sitting on the balcony with a book I wasn't really reading when my phone rang. The number wasn't saved, but it was a Thai number, so I answered. "Hello? Alton?" "Alton?" a woman's voice said. She sounded surprised, almost shocked. "Yes, who's this?" There was a pause, long enough that I thought she'd hung up. Then she said, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought this was Somchai's number." "Who?" "Never mind. Wrong number." She hung up before I could say anything else. I sat there staring at my phone, a strange feeling creeping over me. Something about that call felt wrong, the way she'd said my name, the way she'd sounded shocked when I answered. like she knew who I was but wasn't expecting to reach me. I didn't know why, but my stomach twisted into a knot. An hour later, the same number called again. This time I let it ring. I watched it buzz on the table, my name flashing on the screen, and I didn't pick up. Part of me didn't want to know. Part of me wanted to stay in the comfortable lie I'd been living. Then I got a text. Sorry again. But you should know. Sue is still working. Different bar, different name. My name is Nam. I'm her friend. I thought you should know. My hands were shaking when I read it. I read it 3 more times, each word sinking in deeper. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to think that everything I'd felt, everything I'd built with her, was a lie. But the seed of doubt that had been planted was now growing roots, spreading through my chest like poison. I called the number back. A woman answered on the second ring. Hello? Her voice was cautious. This is Alton. You texted me about Sudawan. She was quiet for a second. I could hear traffic in the background, the sound of horns and engines, music from a nearby bar. Then she said, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get involved. But you seem like a nice man. She's not who you think she is. What are you talking about? My voice came out strangled, barely above a whisper. She's still working at a bar in Naklua. She uses the name Ploy now. She has 2 other boyfriends I know of. Maybe more. One in Jomtien, one near the Russian area. Maybe others I don't know about. I felt like the ground disappeared under me. Like I was falling and there was nothing to grab onto. You're lying. I wish I was, she said, and she sounded genuinely sad. But I've known Sue for 10 years, since we worked together in Bangkok. This is what she does. She's good at it, really good. She makes men feel special, makes them think they're different, but they're all the same to her. Just money. I'm sorry. Why are you telling me this? Because you called my phone by accident last week, and you sounded nice. You sounded like you really cared about her, and I thought you should know before you give her everything. She hung up. I sat there on the balcony for I don't know how long. The sun went down. The traffic got louder, then quieter. The street vendors started packing up their carts. The bars started filling up with tourists and expats looking for a good time, and I just sat there, my phone in my hand, my mind racing with questions I didn't want to ask. Every moment we'd shared replayed in my head. Every kiss, every laugh, every time she'd called me Paul or told me I was different, every time she'd cooked for me or held my hand or told me she was done with the bar life. Were any of those moments real? Or was I just another Mark, another lonely old man with money in his pocket and emptiness in his heart? When Sudawan came home that night, I was waiting for her in the living room. The lights were off except for the one above the dining table. She looked happy when she walked in, carrying bags from the market. I bought ingredients for masaman curry, she said with a smile. Your favorite, right? Who's Nam? I asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. She froze. Just for a second, but I saw it. The smile disappeared from her face. Her eyes went wide, then narrowed. Then she recovered, forced the smile back, and said, Nam, she's an old friend from Bangkok. Why? She called me today. She said you're still working, that you're seeing other men. Her face changed. The softness disappeared completely, replaced by something hard and cold. Something I'd never seen before. She's lying. She's jealous. She's always been jealous of me because I'm prettier and make more money. Why would she lie? Because she's a bitch, Alton. She wanted you for herself, and I said no. She saw us together and got angry. She's trying to ruin what we have. Then why does she know so much about you? Why does she know about the bar in Naklua? Why does she know you used the name Ploy? Sudawan's eyes went hard, dark, like a switch had been flipped. You believe her over me? After everything I've done for you? After I gave up my life to be with you? Her voice was rising now, sharp and accusatory. I don't know what to believe. I cook for you. I clean for you. I take care of you when you're sick. And this is how you repay me? By believing some jealous bitch who calls you on the phone? She knew my name. She knew about us. How would she know that if she was lying? Because we're Facebook friends. She sees my posts. Sudawan was yelling now, her face red. You're too old to understand how things work here. You think everything is black and white. You think you can judge me because you come from America where everything is easy. You don't know what it's like to survive here. You don't know what I've had to do to take care of my family. Then tell me the truth. Are you still working? Are there other men? She grabbed her bag from the counter, the one I'd bought her at the mall 2 months ago. I'm not staying here if you're going to treat me like this. I'm not going to be interrogated like a criminal. Where are you going? Anywhere but here. She walked to the door and I felt panic rising in my chest. Wait. Just talk to me. Please. She turned back and looked at me with something close to disgust. You want to know the truth, Alton? Fine. Yes, I still work sometimes. Yes, I see other men. Because you don't give me enough money. Your pension is nothing. You think 60,000 baht is a lot? That lasted 2 weeks. My daughter needs school supplies. My mother needs medicine. My brother needs help with his business. What am I supposed to do? Sit here and wait for you to die so I can get nothing? Each word was like a knife in my chest. I gave you everything. You gave me nothing, she screamed. You gave me an old man who can't even make love properly anymore. You gave me a boring life in a small condo. You gave me shame because everyone knows I'm with a farang for money. You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to be with someone who looks like my grandfather? I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. She opened the door. Don't call me. Don't look for me. We're done. She walked out and slammed the door so hard the picture frames on the wall shook. One of them fell and the glass shattered on the floor. I didn't go after her. I just stood there in the dark living room, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. My hands were trembling. My legs felt weak. And I realized I didn't even know who I'd been living with. The woman I'd loved, the woman I'd called my wife, had just told me exactly what I was to her. Nothing. Just an old man with a little bit of money. She didn't come back that night, or the next morning, or the day after that. I called her phone. It rang twice, then went to a message saying the number was no longer in service. I checked her Facebook. The account was gone. Every photo of us, every heart emoji, every comment about how lucky she was, all deleted. I checked Line. Blocked. I went to the bar in Naklua that Nam had mentioned, a small place with karaoke and a disco ball spinning in the corner. The mama-san, a woman in her 50s with gold jewelry and bright red lipstick, looked at me like I was crazy when I asked about Sudawan. No Sudawan here, she said in broken English. You sure? She might go by Ploy. She shook her head and turned away. No, Ploy. You go now. But I saw something in her eyes. Recognition. She knew exactly who I was talking about. I went back to the condo and looked through everything she'd left behind. It wasn't much. A few shirts, worn and faded. Some makeup, cheap brands from the market. A notebook with phone numbers I didn't recognize, written in Thai with little hearts next to some of them. I found a receipt from a phone shop for 3 new SIM cards purchased 2 weeks ago. I found a business card from a bar in Soi 6 with a man's name written on the back in English. Peter, 10K month. I opened my banking app and went through my transaction history, slowly, carefully, line by line. Over the past 2 months, there had been transfers to 3 different accounts, none of them in her name. One was listed as a company account, one was just a number. One had a man's name I didn't recognize. The total came to just over 400,000 baht, more than $12,000. Money I'd sent thinking it was for her mother's medicine, for her daughter's school fees, for rent she supposedly still owed. Money I'd given her because I loved her and wanted to take care of her. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. The condo felt huge and empty, like a cavern. The air conditioner hummed, but I felt cold. I felt like I'd been hollowed out. Like someone had reached inside me and taken everything that mattered. Everything I thought was real. Everything I thought we were building. All of it was a lie. I wasn't angry. Not yet. Anger would come later. Right now I was just numb. Just empty. Just broken. I started walking. Every day. Through the streets of Pattaya, past the bars blasting music and flashing lights, past the beach where couples sat watching the sunset, past the massage parlors and the 7-Elevens and the currency exchange shops with LED signs flashing rates. I saw men just like me everywhere. Old, white, faces red from the sun and the beer, walking next to women half their age, sometimes younger, holding hands, laughing, looking happy. I wondered how many of them were living the same lie I'd lived. I wondered how many of them knew and just didn't care. I wondered if they'd made the same calculation I had, deciding that even fake love was better than no love at all. That companionship with a price tag was better than eating dinner alone every night. One night I walked past the bar where I'd first met her. The same red light bulb, the same plastic stools, different girls standing outside, younger ones, calling out to passing men, "Hey, handsome, come sit, just talk." I kept walking. I walked all the way to the beach and sat on the wall watching the waves. An old man sat down next to me, British accent, gray beard, thick glasses. "First time?" he asked. "What? First time getting your heart broke in Thailand?" I nodded. He laughed, but it wasn't mean. "Join the club, mate. We've all been there. Every single one of us. We come here thinking we're special, thinking we found the one good girl in a sea of bar girls. Then we learn the hard way. How do you deal with it?" He shrugged. "You accept it. You accept that this is transactional. Some of us keep playing the game anyway because we're too old and too ugly to get attention back home. Some of us go home with our tails between our legs. Some of us stay but give up on love altogether. Which one are you gonna be?" I didn't have an answer. He stood up and patted my shoulder. "Take care of yourself, mate. And remember, it's not personal. It's just business." He walked away and I sat there watching the waves until the sun came up. One night I stood in front of the mirror in my bathroom and I looked at myself. Really looked. I saw an old man. Thin hair combed over a bald spot that was getting bigger, loose skin hanging from my neck. A belly that hung over my belt no matter how many sit-ups I tried to do. Liver spots on my hands, deep wrinkles around my eyes. I looked like someone's grandfather, not someone's boyfriend, not someone's husband. And I asked myself out loud, did you really think love came with a receipt? My voice echoed in the small bathroom. I didn't blame her anymore. Not completely. She did what she had to do. She was surviving in a world that didn't give her many options. Born in a poor village. Limited education. A daughter to raise. A sick mother. Bills to pay. And men like me showing up with our pensions and our loneliness, expecting them to fix us. Maybe she even liked me a little. Maybe some of it was real. Maybe when she laughed at my jokes or held my hand, there were moments where she wasn't pretending. But I'd been a fool. I'd ignored every red flag because I wanted so badly to believe that someone could love me. Not my money, not my passport, not the security I offered. Just me. Just the man underneath all of that. I'd been desperate. And desperation makes you blind. It makes you see what you want to see and ignore everything else. Every warning sign becomes an exception. Every lie becomes a misunderstanding. Every doubt becomes paranoia. I thought about my life before Thailand. 2 failed marriages, a job I hated but couldn't leave, friends who drifted away, kids who called once a year on Christmas. I'd been lonely for so long that I'd forgotten what it felt like to be whole. And when Sudawan showed up, when she smiled at me and listened to my stories and made me feel like I mattered, I latched onto her like a drowning man latches onto a piece of wood. I made her my savior, my purpose, my reason for being alive. And that was my mistake. Not loving her, but needing her. There's a difference. I started writing. Not to her. I'd never send her anything. There was no point. But to the man I was before I met her. The man who got off the plane in Bangkok thinking he was starting a new chapter. The man who walked into that bar on a Tuesday night looking for conversation. I wrote down every warning sign I'd ignored, every lie I'd swallowed, every moment I'd chosen hope over truth. I wrote, she said her phone was always dying. It wasn't. She said she was helping friends. She wasn't. She said you were her last love. You weren't even her only love that week. I wrote, you gave her 60,000 baht for a lease she probably didn't have. You sent money for medicine her mother might not have needed. You bought a phone she probably sold the next day. I wrote, you introduced her as your wife. She introduced you as her ATM. I wrote, she never asked about your day. She never asked about your health. She never asked what you wanted. She only asked what you could give. I wrote, you ignored it all because you were desperate to feel loved. Writing it down helped. It made it real. It made it something I could look at from the outside instead of feeling trapped inside of it. It helped me see the pattern, the manipulation, the calculated moves, the way she'd cry whenever I questioned her, the way she'd withhold affection until I apologized, the way she'd threaten to leave whenever I pushed back. I'd seen it all before in my marriages. But this time I'd been too blinded by exotic location and age difference to recognize the same patterns. I forgave myself, slowly, one sentence at a time, one painful realization at a time. I started going to an expat support group at a community center near Jomtien. There were 6 of us at the first meeting. All men, all over 60, all with similar stories. Different names, different faces, same lesson. A guy named Colin, a Brit with a thick Liverpool accent, said something that stuck with me. The hardest part isn't losing the money. It's realizing you were never special. You were just convenient. Everyone in the room nodded. We all knew exactly what he meant. Another guy, a German named Klaus, said he'd lost his entire retirement savings. 300,000 euros. Gone. His Thai wife left him the day after he put the last payment down on a house in her village. Took everything. The house, the car, the motorbike, even his dog. Another man, an Australian named Pete, said his partner had stolen his identity and opened credit cards in his name, racked up $40,000 in debt before disappearing. He was still fighting with the banks 2 years later. We sat in folding chairs in a stuffy room with bad coffee and shared our humiliations. And somehow, it helped. Knowing I wasn't alone. Knowing I wasn't the only fool. Knowing that what happened to me wasn't unique or special. It was a pattern. A script that played out thousands of times in this city with different actors but the same ending. One man said something that made me think. His name was Richard, a Canadian from Toronto who'd been living in Thailand for 8 years. The thing is, he said, we come here broken. We come here because something back home didn't work out. A divorce, a death, a job loss, loneliness. And we think a change of scenery will fix us. We think tropical weather and cheap beer and young women will fill the hole inside us. But you can't fix internal problems with external solutions. You can't buy your way out of loneliness. You can't pay someone to love you. And the women here, they know that. They can smell desperation from a mile away. They know exactly what to say, exactly how to act, to make us believe we're special. Because that's what we want to believe. That's what we need to believe. He looked around the room. I'm not saying they're bad people. Most of them aren't. They're just trying to survive. But we're trying to survive too. We're trying to survive the loneliness, the rejection, the feeling that our lives are over. And when those two kinds of survival meet, someone always gets hurt. I thought about that for days. Was I really that broken when I arrived? Yes, I was. I'd left America because I couldn't stand living in that empty house anymore. Couldn't stand seeing couples at the grocery store. Couldn't stand holidays alone. Couldn't stand the pitying looks from married friends who'd stopped inviting me to dinner parties because I was the odd man out. I came to Thailand looking for an escape, and Sudawan offered me exactly that. An escape from loneliness, from feeling unwanted, from the creeping fear that I'd die alone and nobody would notice for weeks. She offered me companionship, intimacy, purpose, and I grabbed onto it without asking questions because I was terrified of going back to that emptiness. That's why I ignored the red flags. That's why I believed the lies. Not because I was stupid, but because the alternative was unbearable. I sold the condo a month later. Took the loss. Didn't care. I couldn't stay there anymore. Every corner reminded me of her. The kitchen where she'd cooked. The bed where we'd slept. The balcony where she'd told me I was her last love. The bathroom where she'd brushed my hair. Even the sounds reminded me. The air conditioner that used to make her cold so she'd curl up next to me. The traffic noise from the street that used to lull us to sleep. The neighbor's dog that used to bark at 5 in the morning and make her groan and pull the pillow over her head. I packed my things into 2 suitcases and left. I didn't look back. I went north first. Chiang Mai. Spent 2 weeks in a guest house near the old city. It was beautiful. Ancient temples. Night markets. Mountains in the distance. But it was full of young backpackers and digital nomads and couples on romantic getaways. I felt old and out of place. I felt like I was intruding on someone else's adventure. So I kept moving. Chiang Rai, Pai, Udon Thani. I was searching for something, but I didn't know what. Peace, maybe. Or at least a place where I could breathe without feeling like I was suffocating on memories. I finally found it in a small town I won't name. It's in the northeast, far from the tourist trail. A place where foreigners are rare and people mind their own business. The air is cooler here, especially in the mornings. I rent a small house on the edge of town with a garden where I grow tomatoes and chili peppers and morning glory. The landlord is an old Thai man who speaks no English but smiles and waves when he sees me. My neighbors are farmers and shopkeepers and school teachers. They were suspicious of me at first, this old white man who showed up out of nowhere. But I kept to myself. Didn't cause trouble. Learned to weigh properly. Started buying vegetables from the same vendor every morning. And slowly, they accepted me. Not as a friend, exactly, but as a harmless presence. Someone who belongs here just enough to not be a threat. I walk every morning before the heat sets in, past rice fields that stretch to the horizon, past temples where monks in orange robes sweep the grounds, past schools where children in uniforms play soccer during recess. I say hello to my neighbors in broken Thai. They laugh at my accent, but they're patient with me. They correct my tones. They teach me new words. The woman who sells me vegetables taught me the word for eggplant and cilantro and lime. The man who fixes motorbikes taught me how to ask for help when something breaks. The teacher at the primary school taught me how to say, "Beautiful day," and "take care." I'm learning the language, slowly. My tongue doesn't want to make the sounds correctly, and the tones confuse me. Rising tone. Falling tone. High tone. Low tone. Mid-tone. It all sounds the same to my American ears. But I like the challenge. I like feeling like I'm part of something instead of just a tourist passing through. I like that when I speak Thai, even badly, people's faces light up. They appreciate the effort. They see me trying to understand their world instead of expecting them to understand mine. I don't date anymore. I'm not sure I ever will again. The thought of opening myself up like that again, of trusting someone with my heart and my future, makes me feel tired, exhausted, really. Like I've run a marathon, and there's no energy left for another race. Maybe that's okay. Maybe I don't need someone else to feel whole. Maybe I spent so much of my life looking for someone to complete me that I never learned how to be complete on my own. My first wife used to say I was needy. My second wife said I was suffocating. Maybe they were right. Maybe I made them responsible for my happiness instead of taking responsibility for it myself. And then I came to Thailand and did the same thing with Sudawan, made her my purpose. My reason to wake up in the morning. My answer to loneliness. That's not love. That's dependency. And dependency doesn't end well for anyone. I've started reading again. Real books, not just thrillers on my phone. I'm working through classics I never had time for when I was younger. Hemingway, Steinbeck, Camus. I read slowly now, savoring each page. There's no rush. I have nothing but time. I cook my own meals. Simple things, rice and vegetables, grilled chicken. Som tam when I'm feeling ambitious, though mine never tastes as good as the versions I buy from the street vendors. But they taste better when I make them myself. There's something satisfying about feeding yourself, about not depending on anyone else for basic sustenance. I write in my journal every night before bed. Just a few sentences about the day, what I saw, what I learned, how I felt. Sometimes I write about Sudawan, but less and less as time goes on. The wound is healing, slowly. Like a deep cut that takes months to close but eventually does. Some days I actually feel at peace. Not happy. Exactly. Not the way I thought happiness would feel when I was younger. Not the euphoria of new love or the satisfaction of achievement. But peaceful, quiet, honest. There's no one to perform for, no one to impress. No one to convince that I'm worth loving. I can just be. Just exist. Just wake up and drink my coffee and watch the sunrise and not worry about whether I'm enough. And some days, that feels like more than enough. I've made a few acquaintances here. Not friends, exactly, but people I see regularly. There's an old Thai man who sits at the same coffee shop every morning reading the newspaper. We nod to each other. Sometimes he helps me order in Thai when the young waitress doesn't understand my accent. There's a woman who runs the laundry service where I take my clothes. She always asks how I am and actually waits for an answer. There's a monk at the temple who speaks a little English. Sometimes I sit with him in the shade and we talk about nothing in particular. He never asks why I'm here, never asks about my past, never judges. He just accepts me as I am. These small connections sustain me. They're not deep, they're not intimate, but they're real, they're honest. There's no transaction, no hidden agenda, just simple human kindness between people who happen to share the same space. I don't hate Sudawan. I don't even think about her much anymore. When I do, it's without the sharp pain that used to come with her memory. It's more like remembering a dream. Something that felt real in the moment but became less substantial when I woke up. She was surviving. I was naive. That's the truth of it. She saw an opportunity and she took it, and I can't entirely blame her for that. If I'd been born in a poor village with limited options and a family to support, maybe I would have done the same thing. Maybe I would have learned to smile at lonely men and tell them what they wanted to hear. Maybe I would have learned to turn my emotions on and off like a light switch. Maybe survival requires that kind of detachment. But I hate what I became when I was with her. I hate how small I made myself, how much I ignored just to keep her close, how I twisted myself into knots trying to be what I thought she wanted, how I sacrificed my dignity, my self-respect, my common sense, all in the name of love. But it wasn't love, it was fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being unwanted, fear of facing the truth that I'd wasted my life on things that didn't matter. 2 failed marriages, 30 years selling cars to people who couldn't afford them, a house in Ohio that felt like a tomb. I'd been running from that truth my entire adult life, and when I ran to Thailand, I thought I could outrun it, thought I could reinvent myself, thought I could start over. But you can't start over until you accept where you are. You can't build something new on a foundation of lies and denial. I thought love meant sacrifice. I thought it meant giving everything and asking for nothing. I thought it meant accepting whatever crumbs of affection someone was willing to give me and being grateful for them. But real love doesn't ask you to lose yourself. Real love doesn't require you to ignore your instincts or silence your doubts. Real love doesn't make you feel crazy for asking questions. Real love isn't one person taking and the other person giving until there's nothing left to give. I know that now. And maybe that's why I don't date anymore, not because I've given up on love, but because I finally understand what it should look like. And I'd rather be alone than settle for less than that ever again. For the first time in a long time, I feel honest. Not happy. Not fixed. Not even okay, really. Just honest. I look at myself in the mirror and I see the truth. I see an old man who made mistakes, an old man who wanted to be loved so badly he was willing to believe anything, an old man who gave away his dignity along with his money. But I also see an old man who survived, who learned, who's still here, still breathing, still trying. I see someone who's finally stopped running from the truth, someone who's finally stopped trying to be someone he's not, someone who's finally comfortable with silence and solitude and the simple rhythm of daily life. I wake up with the Sunday, I make coffee and sit in my garden and watch the morning light spread across the fields. I water my plants. I sweep my porch. I walk to the market and buy vegetables for dinner. I cook. I read. I write. I sleep. And I do it all again the next day. There's no drama. No excitement. No grand romance or adventure. Just the quiet, unremarkable life of an old man in a small town. And you know what? That's enough. Maybe survival is enough. Maybe peace is enough. Maybe I don't need the fairy tale ending I always thought I deserved. Maybe the real ending is just this: a quiet house in a small town, tomatoes growing in the garden, the knowledge that I finally know who I am, no illusions, no lies, no desperate need for someone else to validate my existence, just me. Sometimes at night, when I can't sleep, I think about the other men, the ones still in Pattaya, still sitting in bars, still holding hands with women young enough to be their granddaughters, still believing they're special, still ignoring the whispers and the smirks and the warning signs. Part of me wants to warn them, wants to grab them by the shoulders and shake them and say, "Wake up. This isn't real. She doesn't love you. She's doing a job, and you're the customer. But I know they wouldn't listen. I wouldn't have listened either. Because when you're desperate, when you're lonely, when you're terrified of dying alone, you'll believe anything. You'll ignore any warning. You'll pay any price. Just for the illusion of being loved. Just for someone to hold your hand and call you handsome and make you feel like you matter. Even if it's fake. Even if you know deep down that it's fake. Because fake love is still better than no love at all. Or so you tell yourself. Until it isn't. Until the illusion shatters and you're left holding the pieces, wondering how you could have been so blind. That's where I was a year ago. Holding the pieces. Wondering. Bleeding. But I'm not there anymore. I've put most of the pieces back together. Some of them are still missing. Some of them will always be missing. But I'm whole enough. Functional enough. Alive enough. I've learned to forgive myself. That was the hardest part. Not forgiving Sudawan, but forgiving the man who ignored every warning sign, who handed over his bank card, who believed the lies because he wanted them to be true, who traded his self-respect for companionship. I've learned to forgive that man because I understand him now. I understand why he did what he did. I understand the loneliness that drove him. The fear, the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. He wasn't stupid. He was human. And being human means sometimes we make terrible decisions in pursuit of connection. Sometimes we ignore our better judgment because our hearts are screaming louder than our heads. Sometimes we give too much to people who never intended to give anything back. That's not weakness. That's just what happens when you want to be loved. When you need to be loved. When you've been alone for so long that any hand reaching toward you feels like salvation. I don't regret coming to Thailand. I don't regret meeting Sudawan. I don't even regret the money I lost or the pain I endured. Because all of it taught me something I needed to learn. That I can survive heartbreak. That I can survive betrayal. That I can survive being alone. That survival isn't the same as happiness, but sometimes it's enough. Sometimes just making it through the day, just putting one foot in front of the other, just breathing in and out, that's victory enough. I'm 68 years old now. I have maybe 10 or 15 good years left, if I'm lucky. Maybe less, given my heart condition, and I could spend those years bitter, angry, closed off, hating women, hating Thailand, hating myself for being foolish. Or I could spend them like this, quietly, peacefully, growing vegetables in a garden, learning a new language, watching sunrises and sunsets, being kind to strangers, accepting kindness in return, not searching for anything, not running from anything, just being. I choose this. I choose peace over bitterness. I choose honesty over illusion. I choose solitude over fake companionship, and maybe that makes me a quitter. Maybe that means I've given up on love, but I don't think so. I think it means I've finally learned what love is supposed to be, and I've learned that I'd rather wait for the real thing, or die waiting, than settle for another beautiful lie. So I stay here. In this small town where nobody knows my story, where nobody judges me for my past, where I'm just the old farang who grows tomatoes and tries to speak Thai and waves good morning to his neighbors. It's not the life I imagined when I got on that plane to Bangkok. It's not the adventure I thought I was starting. There's no beautiful woman by my side, no romantic sunsets on the beach, no fairy tale ending, but it's real. It's honest. It's mine. And after everything, after all the lies and the heartbreak and the money lost and the dignity sacrificed, real is all I want anymore. Just real. Just true. Just me. Standing in my garden at sunrise, watching the light spread across the fields, knowing exactly who I am and finally being okay with it. That's my story. That's my confession. I trusted a Thai bar girl with my future. I gave her my money, my heart, my hope, and she took it all and disappeared. And for a long time I couldn't trust anyone, least of all myself. But I'm learning, slowly, day by day. I'm learning to trust myself again, to listen to my instincts, to value my worth, to understand that being alone isn't the same as being lonely, to know the difference between love and need, to recognize red flags instead of painting them green, to choose truth over comfort. I'm learning. and maybe that's enough. Maybe learning is the whole point, not the grand romance, not the perfect ending. Just the slow, painful, beautiful process of learning who you are and what you deserve and how to survive when everything falls apart. Maybe that's the real love story. Not me and Sudawan, but me and myself. Learning to be enough, learning to be whole, learning to be honest. Finally, after 68 years, I'm learning, and I'm still here, still breathing, still growing tomatoes, still trying, and that, I think, is victory enough.